This is Squiggles the Squirrel coming to you live. In this video, I'm going to go more in depth on how you can go splunking into dwarven ruins, what to expect, what to bring with you, and some problems that might arise from this playstyle. First, a quick thank you to the people who watched the other video I made on this topic. I didn't expect it to get 1,000 views, and if you are watching this, I can safely say you don't have to watch this. I'm just doing a proper tutorial that is more comprehensive for an audience, and not just some silly video I made in an hour for my friends. Let's get down to business. After you make your world and find a fort you would like to reclaim, you will want to backtrack to the Legends tab to find out what's going on. It is vital to know what you are facing and if you can even expect the monster to still be there. Doing this can really put into perspective your adventures. In one of my playthroughs, I found out the place was raided by a group of human necromancers. The place, however, was still being settled by wanderers. It had become the home for criminals, thieves, and necromancers alike. Upon arriving to dish out Durin's fury, I received messages of the apocalypse. On the lower levels, demons had burst from beneath the lava, making their way to the surface as they slaughtered everyone in their path. Not the necromancers, the wanderers, or even my dwarves were safe. I wouldn't have context of that adventure without looking it up in Legends. Even though that adventure went poorly, I learned that some ruins that have been pillaged can keep getting settlers. These settlers are not part of your fortress, at least not at first, but they aren't hostile. Not even the necromancers that made their home there were hostile to my dwarves. I wouldn't know what was going on if I hadn't looked it up beforehand. So that's my point. I would highly recommend everyone to look up their fort in Legends mode to figure out what they can expect as they arrive. Now let's get into what to bring, and I could think of no better place to start than with food and alcohol. In most forts, there's a plethora of cheeses, meats, plump helmets, and sometimes even assortments of alcoholic beverages. However, the one time I didn't bring any food, surely enough, was the one time there wasn't any food. So you should bring enough to at least last a season. The average dwarf eats about 2 units of food a season and drinks about 5 units of water or alcohol a season. Since you start with 7 dwarves and the first migration wave can give you up to 2 to 10 dwarves, you could bring about 30 to 34 units of food. You could also grab about 85 units of beer and call it a day, but that could get expensive. A safe spot for alcohol could be about 60 units, and if you bring enough plump helmets for brewing, you will be more than fine. I just threw a bunch of numbers at you pretty fast, but the point is buying all your food at the start is pretty expensive. We didn't even do the math right since your first caravan won't even arrive until it's almost winter, so it is vital to still do farming. The good news is you almost always have immediate access to an underground cavern, and if you don't, you aren't that far from one. Having made your dwarves mostly fighters, you can comfortably clear anything in them, so having a dwarf trained in planter and brewery skills is almost always helpful. Despite the value of the fort, I rarely ever get attacked within the first year, so even above ground farming can be safely done. The point is farming is a very good thing to bring with you. I would recommend getting seeds because it will help with your long-term sustainability. On to the fun part of the video. Weapons and armor. How are you gonna kill the beast? Will you use hammers, maces, crossbows? Or maybe even traps. My suggestion is to get creative and try new things out. However, there are a couple suggestions I can give you to help you get started. You can't go wrong with silver warhammers. 7 trained dwarves with silver warhammers is a forgotten beast's nightmare. You could comfortably kill anything with them. They are so good, I usually only bring 3 or 4 of them and let the rest of my squad take care of other responsibilities. I admit that 3 hammer dwarves versus 1 ancient beast can be a bit of a toss-up. However, against a rock, it's overkill. Copper crossbows and bolts are a close second and my preferred solution for fire-breathing lizards. Copper is better than iron for ranged weapons, and it's very cheap. The only downside with ranged weapons is if you are forced into melee range, things will get rough. And make sure to bring some quivers for your dwarves so they can store their bolts. As for armor, you have two choices, leather or copper. Now, copper might sound bad, but it's better than nothing and it's pretty cheap. You can have your dwarves equipped better metal armor as they explore, but I find copper to be good enough to kill most monsters you run into. If you do go with leather, just remember all leather is equal in terms of defense. Just grab the cheapest, and again, I find leather to almost be more than enough. While you can go without armor and usually be fine, I would always grab the weapons you want at minimum. Alright, let's talk about a strange problem that I run into when getting footage for this video. It was a lot of forts that I went into that just didn't have any beds or trees. Getting wood is often difficult. It can be useful to bring a dwarf trained in carpentry and a bunch of wood for him to work with. It takes about 1 unit of wood to make a bed, and you can expect to have 10 to 17 dwarves within your first year. So bring 20 to 30 units of wood for some beds and maybe even some emergency walls to deal with aquifer problems that can occur. Problems with aquifers can occur. They can stop your dwarves from being able to go up the little slopes that the AI uses to get in and out of the fort. You and I build straight into a mountain, but the AI builds slopes going all the way down the earth, and so getting water on these slopes can prevent your dwarves from being able to go in and out of your fort. So you typically want some wood around, and the wood's also great if you have like a tavern and you can get early adventurers and you just need to make a better tavern. You're like, well fine, I've got some wood. Those are some problems I ran into, and so if you can make wood into your budget and you know there isn't trees nearby, I highly suggest going with wood. And I highly suggest being aware of local aquifers, because they're actually pretty easy to deal with if you catch them ahead of time. You typically can block an aquifer with just some walls. Skills for your dwarves are pretty straightforward. You are going to make all your combat dwarves, which very well may be all of your dwarves, skilled in their respective combat skills. For example, all crossbow dwarves will be trained in Mark's Dwarf and the Dodger skill. I highly recommend the dodging skill. I think it is the best defense out of all of the defenses. Some honorable mentions, however, are the Archer skill and the Fighter skill. These two skills specifically reduce the chances of your opponent dodging your attacks. Archery affects all range combat, and Fighter affects all melee combat. It is worth mentioning that your basic weapon skills, like Mark's Dwarf, already reduce the chance of your opponent dodging, along with other things, as the Mark's Dwarf also affects the rate of fire your dwarf has. So it is worth pointing, though, I do not know that if the Archer skill is significantly better at reducing the chance of your opponent dodging your attacks than the Mark's Dwarf skill. But I do know that the Mark's Dwarf skill also reduces the chance of your opponent dodging your attacks. I would like to take this moment to thank everyone for watching the video, and I hope you at least learned something. Put a lot of work into this one. I hope it comes out better, and I hope it gives way more information. I'm making this video because I plan to make more Dwarf Fortress content, and as people funnel into the channel, since people will apparently watch it, I was like, man, I really don't want them to ever watch the first one. I really don't. I don't like the first one. I'm gonna make another one. So I thank everyone for watching the first one, and I thank everyone for watching this one. Thank you, and I hope you have a nice day.